Dragon-type Pokémon are one of the oldest Pokémon types, as well as being one of the most well-represented. All across the board, Dragon types possess incredible strength and resilience, have a plethora of resistances to common Pokémon types like Grass, Water, and Fire, and nearly every region has at least one notable Dragon-type trainer, save for Sinnoh. Even Lance, the first ever champion, was a Dragon-type master. Throughout the games, the Dragon-type has commanded respect, but the question has to be asked, of all the Dragon-type Pokémon, which ones are gentle giants, and which ones are terrible tyrants? I'm Kyle with Pokebinge, and this is every Dragon-type Pokémon good to evil. Now for this video, we'll be including every single Dragon-type Pokémon, trying to focus mostly on their lore and representation in the games. And just to be clear, we're not going to be covering Pokémon who have Mega Evolutions that are Dragon-type. We're also not going to be covering Pokémon who are obviously dragons, but do not possess the Dragon-type. Sorry about that, Charizard. We're also going to do something a little different today, in that we won't be grouping Pokémon up by evolutionary line. As always, we'll be starting with the most noble Pokémon, and working our way down to the most evil. These Pokemon are the good. Taking the gold medal of good is good old Dragonite. Dragonite's massive size is only matched by the size of its heart. Despite its bulk, Dragonite's capable of flying across the world at speeds equal to that of a commercial airline. And just what does Dragonite do with this incredible speed it possesses? It rescues people from shipwrecks for fun. That is literally its hobby. This isn't even a quirk of one or two Dragonite, it's a fact of the entire line, as Dragonites are typically described as taking shipwrecked people to island paradises covered entirely by Dragonite. The fact that it goes out of its way to save lives across the globe, like some flying planetary lifeguard as a side hustle, definitely makes Dragonite win the gold medal of good. Glomping the silver medal of good is everyone's favorite ooze, Goodra. Goodra is a giant softie as much as it is slightly scatterbrained. It easily grows attached to its trainer, and once it does, it will constantly hug and snuggle them, coating them in its slime. It hates being alone, and if it's left alone for too long, it will actually cry. So shame on you if you leave it alone. While the Pokemon struggles with following directions, getting confused quite easily, Goodra is a very cozy and loving Pokemon and only wants to be loved and supported. So how could we not give it the silver medal? Coming in hot from the legendary list is Rayquaza, which takes the bronze medal of good. Rayquaza lives in the Pokemon world's ozone layer, where it feasts on water vapor and other particles living at the top of the world. From the stratosphere, Rayquaza eats meteors, oversees Kyogre and Groudon, and even steps in order to break up Kyogre and Groudon whenever they want to fight, saving the world from an end-of-the-world scenario. With this knowledge, Rayquaza serves an integral role in preserving the balance in the world. So sounds like a shoo-in for the gold medal, right? Well, it's important to remember that Rayquaza seems to do this stuff out of its own survival, and preserving its habitat rather than doing it out of any want of doing good on its own part. Mechanically, Rayquaza is doing the world an incredible favor, but morally, Rayquaza's just doing what it must do, or else it's gotta go planet shopping. Furthermore, in the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, Rayquaza is shown to be incredibly paranoid and temperamental. Rayquaza's just a little bit better than Kyogre and Groudon when it comes to managing emotions. That all being said, the immense world-saving good Rayquaza does greatly outweighs the morally neutral nature of its soul, so we gotta give it the bronze medal. Next up, we have Gabite. Gabite is a big, huge predatory Pokemon that moves incredibly fast and is extremely territorial. Its greed leads it to war with Sableye for control over vast swaths of gems, gold, and even Carbank in its attempt to have a huge horde. So why the heck is this Mr. Krabs of a Pokemon taking second billing to Rayquaza in do-gooders like Dragonite and Goodra? Well, Gabite has one very valuable ability. Its scales are said to be able to heal incurable diseases. In the hands of a pharmacist, it's an invaluable Pokemon to have if its scales are potent enough to heal diseases. So it may be greedy, but its scales can ultimately save lives, and saving lives is an ultimate good. Next is Dragonair, the dragon Pokemon. How very on the nose. Dragonair is a long, graceful Pokemon and is generally described as being divine in general. It lives in seas and lakes and is said to possess a strange aura that allows it to be able to control the weather. It's generally shown as being a kind and gentle Pokemon, and is a Pokemon beloved by farmers for its ability to guarantee crop harvests by using its power over climate change. Moving on to Cyclizar, the Mount Pokémon. This big lizard is a Pokémon made to be used as a mode of transportation. For 10,000 years, Cyclizar has been giving people rides on its back, capable of reaching 70 miles per hour while carrying a person. While this doesn't seem like much on the outside, this relationship is a lot more than what it seems. It's symbiotic, where people gain a very fast mode of getting from point A to point B. Cyclizar actually uses the person's body heat in order to revitalize the self. Cyclizar gains a lot from helping as many people as possible get from place to place, making it a Pokemon that lives high up on the good side of the spectrum. Next up on the list is Frigibax, the Ice Fin Pokemon. This Pokemon feeds off of heat in order to convert it into freezing cold, and tends to live in places like craggy mountains, in order to get both shelter and access to more cold. Using its dorsal fin, Frigibax is able to cool down these locations even more, and because of this, it could have some use as a refrigeration unit, maybe being used for freezing foods for restaurants or cooling you down while you're at the beach. Ultimately, Frigibax just wants to live its life, and the passive benefits of owning one certainly outweigh the bad. Coming in next is Dracloak. With a clutch of Dreepies in tow, Dracloak earns its role as the caretaker Pokemon. It's always seen with a Dreepy on its head, and it will take care of this Dreepy until it evolves, and will fervently protect its Dreepy until the bitter end. With the ability to fly at over 120 miles per hour, it's always able to swoop in and save the day. But taking care of Dreepy is one thing. If it's ever left without a Dreepy to take care of, Dracloak becomes uncomfortable and restless. It will then seek out any small Pokemon in order to take care of and nurture it into adulthood. This makes Dracloak a natural nanny. It's a Pokemon you can trust to take care of smaller Pokemon and do a good job in doing so because Dracloak itself wants to be a good parent. It's heartwarming and definitely earns a spot here in the good section. Next up is the duo Latios and Latias. Traveling at high speeds across the world, people barely perceive Latios and Latias thanks to their refractive feathers giving them the power of invisibility. These two are incredibly intelligent Pokemon and are capable of understanding human speech. Ultimately, they're Pokemon that don't want trouble and are peaceful at heart, placing them comfortably here. Next up we have Exeggutor, specifically its Alolan form. Due to the abundance of sunlight in Alola, Exeggutor adapted to these conditions by growing incredibly tall in order to get closer to the sun. The heads of Exeggutor have also shifted, with 3 making the decisions at the top of the neck, and a 4th one on its tail, telepathically surveying closer to the ground. However, due to the head growing so long, its psychic power weakened and seemed to awaken some latent draconic energy, laying dormant inside the Exeggutor, leading to it gaining the Dragon type. While the Alolan Exeggutor doesn't do much on its own, the culture of Alola holds this Pokemon in a very high regard. Alolans say that this is peak Exeggutor form. In addition, Alolan Exeggutor is a popular subject for murals and buildings, showing that Exeggutor has done a lot to inspire artists across Alola. Applin, the Apple Core Pokemon, rolls on in to take the next spot. The smallest dragon type of all time, Applin is born when the tiny worm-like Applin burrows its way into an apple and starts its life cycle. In addition to using the apple as a home, Applin will hide inside in order to protect itself from predators. However, the reason why Applin strikes so high on the good list is for a similar reason to Alolan Exeggutor. Culturally, giving someone an Applin is a romantic Galarian gesture. It may not seem like much, but how exactly are you able to make that into a bad thing? Applin's just a little apple. He doesn't mean any harm, and he serves as a symbol of romance. Coincidentally, next up is Appleton, the apple nectar Pokemon. When exposed to a sweet apple, Applin becomes a big ol' apple pie, and the best kind of pie. The nectar given off by Appleton is so sweet that it will attract Pokemon big and small for miles, and the nectar also happens to be a favorite amongst children. Again, it's not saving the world or destroying your enemies, but Appleton is just trying its best, and it's nice to have a Pokemon whose sole reason to exist is to just let you eat apple pie. Moving on to Drampa, the placid Pokemon. This big sweetheart tends to live in the mountains about 10,000 feet above sea level, descending from the mountains in order to get berries at the base. It's during these ventures that Drampa comes in contact with other people and Pokemon, and is known to be particularly gentle with kids. It will appear in places where children gather and is known to play with them, but despite how gentle it is, if anything dares to hurt a child that it's supervising, it will go full vigilante mode and destroy the house of the bully with extreme force and prejudice. So yeah, Drampa kind of represents where we start going from Pokemon that are purely good and start crawling into the more morally neutral part of the list. While Drampa's intentions are good, not everyone deserves to have their house burned down. All it takes is for Drampa to misread your intentions one time and suddenly you're homeless. Next up we have Altaria, Using its wonderful soprano voice and its graceful wings, Altaria carries a melody wherever it goes. People say that its humming can make one feel as though they're living in a dream, and if one bonds with a person, it'll spend much of its time enveloping its trainer with its wings in order to hum them into a peaceful sleep. However, if the Pokemon were to ever be provoked, one can expect to be met with the most shrill screams imaginable, before being shredded to death with its razor-sharp claws and its red-hot dragon breath attacks. These Pokemon are considered to be fearless battlers and will fight without mercy. Never forget that behind that elegance and beautiful music lies the heart of a true dragon. Moving on to Zygarde, the Order Pokemon. Zygarde is incredibly weird to cover because technically Zygarde isn't just one Pokemon, but four. You see, Zygarde is a Pokemon that changes depending on how complete it is, with its full form being composed of 5 Zygarde cores and thousands of Zygarde cells. The most base component of Zygarde is the cell, which are hopelessly lost without a core, and are defenseless without a core to guide them into a cohesive whole. At 10% completion, Zygarde's cells form around a single core in order to create a dog-like Pokemon, and makes use of close quarters combat in order to protect itself. At 50% completion, Zygarde becomes its iconic Cobra form, and in this state, it will actively monitor the ecosystem around it and will protect it if necessary. At 100% completion, when every core and every cell is assembled and accounted for, Zygarde takes on a giant humanoid form. When Xerneas and Yveltal, the Pokemon of life and death respectively, are put in danger, that danger has to deal with 100% Zygarde. 100% Zygarde is a planetary immune response, a last-ditch effort to wipe out anything that would disrupt the balance of life and death. However, Zygarde is not all-powerful, and can still be manipulated in this state. Team Flare especially managed to take control of 100% Zygarde, and convince it to go on a rampage before it was stopped by Ash and friends. And if it wasn't, it would have gone on to cause a whole host of damage to the world. While the intentions of Zygarde are pure in that it wants to protect the ecosystem it's inhabiting, it still possesses the capability to cause great devastation in the wrong hands. Next is the powerful Kommo-o, the scaly Pokemon. Kommo-o is a Pokemon that is steeped in Alolan legend. According to Alolan stories, its glittering scales are said to drive away the forces of darkness, and it seeks greater and stronger foes in order to defeat those forces of darkness. Using its devastating uppercut, Kommo-o can send those enemies cascading into the sky. However, Kommo-o will never fight a weak or submissive enemy, instead opting to use its metallic scales to create a warning cry that is intended to frighten away enemies. If the legends are to be believed, Kommo-o has both a good reason to fight as well as a very strong sense of honor. Next we have Bagon, the Rockhead Pokemon. This little guy has just one dream in life: to fly. And that's pretty hard to do, obviously, because poor Bagon lacks wings. So what's a dragon to do? Well, Bagon's genius idea is that if it can't fly, it'll hurl itself off of cliffs in order to practice the feeling of flying. It's done this so many times that its head is hardened in response to all the trauma it's felt over the course of its life. Bagon's ultimately more of a harm to itself than it is to other people, but its dreams of being able to fly are one we can all weirdly relate to. Next we have the motorbike lizards, Miraidon and Koraidon. Miraidon, also known as the Iron Serpent, is a huge metal dragon that is capable of using lightning in order to reduce the land around it into ash. Koraidon, also known as the Winged King, is a giant beast and is said to have enough physical strength to shatter the earth with its bare fists. Both of these Pokemon are said to be forms of Cyclizar from different eras in history. Miraidon is a Paradox Pokemon from the future, while Koraidon is an ancient ancestor of Cyclizar. It's for this reason we can at least assume that some aspects of Cyclizar remain, as both Miraidon and Koraidon also allow the player to ride them in order to get from place to place. In addition, these two are capable of shifting to other forms in order to better adapt to their environment, each sharing modes of swimming, running, flying, and fighting. However, Miraidon and Koraidon seem to value their autonomy much more than Cyclizar, taking some convincing in order to be tamed by the main character and company, and also just being far stronger than a typical Cyclizar. Dashing into our next spot is Jangmo-o, a diligent little Pokemon. Lying within every Jangmo-o is the heart of a mighty warrior. Training day and night, Jangmo-o valiantly challenges other Jangmo-o in the harshest environments, and never turns away from combat. It's also known to use the metal scales on its body to create sound, and this sound is used to express emotion, as well as communicate with and signal challenges to other Jangmo-o, plus intimidate weaker opponents. It's powerful in that it never gives up, and it always is searching for bigger and better challenges. If you train one right, you can trust that it'll be a Pokemon that will be with you through thick and thin. However, if you meet one in the wild, you can expect to be faced with one of the most fierce little warriors ever. With the good Pokemon out of the way, we now enter more neutral territory. These dragon Pokemon fall in the gray area. Next we have everybody's favorite piece of ammunition, Dreepy. All Dreepy are the remnants of a prehistoric water Pokemon roaming alone throughout the seas and picking on Clauncher, theorized to be vestigial behavior from when Dreepy were living. They are very weak when alone, as a mere child can defeat them. This is why Dreepy are often seen being taken care of by Dracloak, or being used by ammunition by Dragapult. Crashing on into our next spot is Tiny Axew. Axew spends day and night smashing their tusks into trees. This is because their tusks grow back stronger and sturdier each time they're broken, and these tusks are sharp enough that they were used by ancient people as hunting knives. Axew determine each other's strength by crushing hard berries with their tusks. It's for this reason that they'll smash their tusks against everything and anything. Trees, rocks, roads, your mom's house, anything. And this can lead to a lot of property damage if an Axew infestation isn't treated properly. That being said, they are just preoccupied with taking care of their tusks, and if you can direct that energy in a certain direction, you can have a good relationship with this little guy like Iris does in the Unova anime. Next is Hakamo'o. This little guy, like Jangmo-o before it, is a very valiant Pokemon and like Kamo'o, is also very powerful. So why does it rank lower? Well, Hakamo'o lacks the discipline and focus of Kamo'o. It's known for diving into combat in order to have its armor broken. This broken armor grows back stronger than it is before, and a Kamo'o treats broken scales as a sign of pride. It's for this reason it's a lot riskier to approach a Hakamo'o. It fights ferociously with no concern for its own safety. However, a Hakamo'o still has positives. Their armor is incredibly useful for creating pots and pans, as they conduct heat incredibly well. So if you can guide its destructive tendencies, you'll have a very plentiful source of scrap metal for tools and other metal goods. Moving on to Dragapult, the stealth Pokemon. These guys are weird. Like very, very weird. Dragapult carries infant Dreepy inside the holes on its horns, but there is a stark difference between the reasons Dragapult does this as opposed to its pre-evolution. Where Dracloak is very gentle with its Dreepy, a Dragapult looks at a Dreepy and says, hey, it's aerodynamic enough, and fires these little guys like heat-seeking missiles at anyone within sight. Now, it's important to know that Dreepy weirdly look forward to being shot out of Dragapult's horns, but why is this even a thing? Regardless of how Dreepy feels, shooting your kids out of a cannon is just not morally correct. Next we have Reshiram and Zekrom. Yet another weird group, but this time for much more esoteric reasons. Reshiram and Zekrom represent truth and ideals respectively. Reshiram, the Dragon of Truth, would go from kingdom to kingdom and burn down anyone who ignored truth in favor of greed, using a flame so hot that it can cause climate change. Zekrom, the Dragon of Ideals, would go from town to town and annihilate anyone who lost sight of the righteousness in their hearts. Reshiram and Zekrom have the awkward position of being as powerful as they are esoteric and weird. How does one quantify what makes something true or ideal? That makes it incredibly hard to guess how Reshiram or Zekrom would react in any given situation. Reshiram and Zekrom are also heavily influenced by their wielder. N gets his mitts on either Reshiram or Zekrom in Pokemon Black or White, and they are easily swayed to Team Plasma's side. And we can all safely agree that Team Plasma doesn't advocate for either truth nor ideals. Reshiram and Zekrom advocate for really good concepts, but they themselves can be very easily manipulated into being the bad guys themselves, and they have an insane amount of power to boot. Which brings us to another legendary duo, Dialga and Palkia. Born from the primordial soup that was created when the mighty Arceus was making the Pokemon universe, Dialga and Palkia serve as the overseers of time and space, respectively. As long as Dialga's heart beats, time keeps going. As long as Palkia breathes, space grew more stable. They were so powerful that they were revered in ancient Sinnoh mythology. The Diamond Clan worship Dialga while the Pearl Clan worship Palkia. These two serve only to keep the fabric of reality stable. stable. So why are they so neutral? It's because they keep falling into the wrong hands. One can count with their fingers and toes the number of times Dialga and Palkia have gone berserk and nearly destroyed the world. They've been brainwashed by the Red Chains by Team Galactic and the alternate world Team Rocket, and they've brawled each other in the rise of Darkrai. Palkia has been hypnotized by Hoopa and Hoopa in the Clash of Ages, and a corrupted Dialga even got a shot at being the main villain in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Partners in Time. After being brainwashed so many times, you'd think Arceus would invest in tinfoil hats for both Dialga and Palkia, but no. Backing away from the legendaries for a little while, next up is Tyrantrum. This giant Pokemon was known to be vicious, with teeth capable of shredding thick metal plates. That said, with its immense power, Tyrantrum reportedly carried itself like a king. What this necessarily means is to be debated, but if we take it in the most positive light possible, this means that Tyrantrum used its immense strength to protect and lead the weaker Pokemon underneath it, providing leadership in ancient times. But if we take it in the worst way, that meant that Tyrantrum was a cruel tyrant, which seems a little more likely. The way the Pokédex talks about it sounds more like it's intended to be a positive, so we will give Tyrantrum the benefit of the doubt and keep him ranked here. Moving on to Noibat. Not much to really say about Noibat aside from the fact that it lives in pitch black caves and uses ultrasonic waves in order to dizzy its opponents and detect what fruits are more ripe than others. It just sort of lives its life, and it's hard to say if it's any more good than your typical fruit bat. Next we have Naganadel, and this one is, you guessed it, a little bit strange. A big poisonous ultra beast, Naganadel's abdomen is filled with a luminescent adhesive neurotoxin, which is connected directly to 3 enormous stingers. These stingers are also incredibly sensitive. They have a direct connection to Naganadel's brain, so if they're touched or damaged in any way, you can expect a face full of venom. While this makes it seem incredibly dangerous, Naganadel is also known to be capable of telepathy, making it one of the few Pokemon capable of communicating with humans. Next is Tatsugiri. This is a Pokemon that thrives off of its symbiotic relationship with Dondozo, a water-type Pokemon. Tatsugiri uses its unique commander ability in order to hide inside Dondozo's mouth and issue orders from inside. Imagine Tatsugiri as the brains to Dondozo's brawn. Outside of Dondozo, it will play dead in order to prevent discovery, and is considered to be one of the smartest and craftiest dragon types due to its ability to supplement its weakness. Next is the weakest dragon type, Gumi. Poor little Gumi is a little slime ball covered in a thick layer of germ-covered mucus that is used to protect Gumi from attacks. If this mucus dries up, Gumi will suffocate, so they're only found in shady, marshy areas. Their horns are also incredibly powerful sensory organs, using all 5 senses to create a sort of spider sense to avoid danger. And because they're so weak, it's hard for them to take risks. Moving on to Dratini, the Mirage Pokemon. Originally considered to be nothing but a myth, it's a Pokemon that tends to live near bodies of water with rapid flow, like rivers and waterfalls. This is because Dratini uses the rapid flow of the water in order to protect itself when it sheds. Much is still unknown about Dratini because much of its time on the Pokédex has been spent trying to confirm its existence. A fisherman took 10 hours focusing slowly on attempting to capture it just to prove that it exists. So it's for this reason it's easy to assume Dratini just wants to be left alone. Next is Shelgon. Shelgon is a literal cocoon for Bagon. It's very rarely seen drinking, eating, or even moving, as it's too busy preparing for its evolution into Salamence. Its body is made of heavy, impenetrable bones, so it's hard for Shelgon to even interact with the world in any meaningful way. Next is the true neutral on our list, Regidrago. One of the many Regi Pokemon created by Regigigas. Regidrago shares a lot of the properties that the other Regis possess. It doesn't need to sleep, eat, drink, or even breathe. For this reason, it's really hard to tell if Regidrago even thinks on the same level as any other living creature. That said, what makes it so unique is that Regidrago is made of pure draconic energy, giving it the power of every dragon Pokemon imaginable. Because it's hard to tell whether Regidrago is canonically even alive, it takes the spot as the most morally neutral dragon-type Pokemon on our list. Next, as we descend towards our bad section, we have Dracozolt and Dracovish, 2 dragon-type fossilized mix-up Pokemon. With its powerful legs and jaw, Dracovish was capable of running at speeds of 40 miles per hour and was considered the apex predator of its time. With its powerful lower body and electricity-powered muscles, Dracozolt stood up to the other herbivores and conquered plant grounds. However, if what science says is true, these two were responsible for their own species' extinctions. Dracovish overhunted its prey, and Dracozolt overgrazed on its plants, leading both species to die of starvation. Next is Haxorus. Now, before Unova fans beat us up, we want to establish that Haxorus itself is way more neutral than it is evil. It's known to be relentless when defending its territory, and is known to challenge enemies with its tusks, which are known to be as hard as steel. That said, Haxorus are also known to be incredibly friendly Pokemon to those who they're familiar with. They're even described as being kind-hearted, but terrifying if angered, in the Pokedex. Speaking of Pokemon that are dangerous if provoked, Noivern is another case of exactly this. They're very violent, territorial, and can create ultrasonic waves that can vibrate a boulder into pebbles. In the dark, it's said that nothing can hope to defeat a Noivern, and they will ruthlessly torment enemies that cannot see. Hydreigon, the massive three-headed eating machine, are terrified of this thing. However, it's also said that if you feed Noivern a fruit that it loves, then it will become tame. Next is Duraludon, the alloy Pokemon. Built like a skyscraper and just as tough, Duraludon possesses a body that is meant to last. Even among Steel-type Pokemon, Duraludon is sturdy and lightweight, with the only thing it can't stand being water, which causes it to rust. For this reason, Duraludon is often found seeking shelter in mountain caves. Other than that, it's not a violent Pokemon and just tends to live alone. However, because it lives in the mountains, it tends to get into scraps with Tyranitar, the Pokemon where if it rampages, it causes mountains to fall and rivers to no longer flow. While Duraludon itself is a relaxed Pokemon, the fact that it can antagonize Tyranitar can lead to a ton of widespread property damage. It's a classic immovable object meets an unstoppable force situation. Gible. Attacking with a giant mouth, Gible hide in holes in the wall that are heated by geothermal energy. It'll launch itself out of these holes at any prey that strays too close, making it a classic ambush predator, and an opportunistic one at that. That said, Gible's animosity is held back by the fact that it is clumsy. The poor guy's just Pac-Man, all mouth, no limbs. Moving on to Flapple, the apple wing Pokemon, the product of an applin being exposed to a sour apple. Applin's worm-like body grows into a more draconic energy, and gains acid production organs. The acid Flapple creates is so potent that it can cause chemical burns, to the point where it can even melt metal. This leads Flapple to becoming an incredibly dangerous Pokemon to approach without proper protection. Our next slot goes to Sliggoo, a cute little fellow who just wants to give you a big hug and maybe digest you. It suffers from the same condition that Goodra has, where all it does is want to hug and love you, but Sliggoo has one big caveat. Its goo is actually an extremely powerful digestive enzyme. It struggles to differentiate friends from food, so if your Sliggoo loves you, that might end up being what they write on your obituary. Here lies my lost friend, for their Sliggoo love them. It's also depressing to know that a large part of why Sliggoo struggles is because it's one of the few cases of Pokemon de-evolution. Its brain has devolved into only thinking about food and escaping enemies, and its eyes have greatly weakened to where it can't see. Moving on to Deino. And where to begin? They're blind as a Zubat, but with the hunger of a whole flock. It will roam aimlessly, ramming into things and biting them in order to discern a juicy berry from a pile of rocks. By doing this, it memorizes the sense of what food is good and what's going to give it a bellyache. Because they just wander around violently eating anything in sight, people are advised to stay as far away from them as possible, unless they have a plan to deal with them. Though our writer wanted us to mention that this is their favorite Pokemon even if it is a menace to society. Fracture, however, is a return to Pokemon that are just territorial, and God help you if you're in their territory. Fracture are often found just fighting over turf and are constantly sharpening their tusks on river rocks. Their tusks no longer grow back like they did when they were Axews, so Fracture need to maintain their tusks as much as possible. They're also very methodical in how they use their tusks. They'll never use their tusks unless absolutely necessary, but if they must, they'll neatly flay their enemy into two portions, one to eat now and one to save for later. Arctibax, the evolution of Frigibax, takes the next spot. Frigibax's ice fin evolves to freeze the ice around it and create a literal ice blade. This is all well and good until you realize that Arctibax is really good at using this ice blade. Boasting a strong back and legs, it can use the ice blade to devastating effect, which can lead to an unsuspecting trainer losing their life if they're caught by one unaware of the danger it can cause. Which brings us to Baxcalibur, an evolution of the danger that Arctibax can cause. As if wielding a blade of ice wasn't bad enough, now Baxcalibur is capable of creating temperatures so cold that it can freeze lava. It can expel these cold temperatures from its mouth, capable of weaponizing this ice-cold temperature even more than it already was. Read up on hypothermia or any other cold-related medical complications to know that losing body heat is an incredibly terrible way to go, and Baxcalibur is the king of taking someone out that way. Next is Turtonator, and oh man, there's a good reason why this guy is here. If there's anything Turtonator likes to do, it's explode. Its shell is chemically unstable and explodes upon something something impacting it. Even its stung is infused with chemicals that are equivalent to package of nitroglycerin, making them dangerously explosive. You may think that this is a very unfortunate side effect of Turtonator's biology, but it takes advantage of this by hiding in volcanic regions and waiting for people to step on it like a comically huge landmine. It even passively gushes toxic gases and fire, if you still had any belief that one of these would make a good pet. Now we have Tyrant, the Royal Air Pokemon. This tiny terror will throw a tantrum if it encounters anything it dislikes, and when it has jaws strong enough to tear apart a small truck, that's a terrifying combination. When it plays, it sometimes forces injured Pokemon to frolic with it or play. While Tyrant doesn't mean to cause such harm, just the fact that its selfishness blinds it to the harm it can cause makes one feel like Tyrant is a couple tantrums away from seriously harming someone. Our next entry is Flygon, the Mystic Pokemon. Also known as the Desert Spirit, Flygon is renowned for two things: using its mighty wings to create sandstorms to hide itself, and the singing sound these wings create when they're being used to make sandstorms. This singing attracts prey, and once they've been sufficiently drawn in, they're then left stranded by the sandstorm, making them a target for a sneak attack by Flygon. This becomes problematic when people mistake the singing sound for an actual woman singing, causing them to go out into the sandstorm and become stranded themselves. Rising from the briny depths is Kingdra, the dragon Pokemon. I thought Dragonair was the dragon Pokemon. Anyways, Kingdra is your classic undersea monster. When it sleeps, its yawns are powerful enough to create whirlpools. When Kingdra rises from the depths, it brings with it undersea currents and tornadoes that terrorize local ocean populations. Because of this, Kingdra are found hibernating deep under the ocean, building up the energy it needs to hunt. When they do hunt, hurricanes and storms are said to happen as they do. And if Kingdra don't strike you as needlessly dangerous Pokemon that need to be stopped immediately material yet, Dragonite, the carriers of our gold medal of good, go out of their way to fight Kingdra whenever they meet. Next up we have Garchomp. Capable of flying as fast as a jet airline, a Garchomp is more than capable of fighting even a Salamence in the air. It hunts both bird Pokemon in the sky and cave-dwelling Pokemon on the ground, and its powerful legs make it a menace in both sky and land. Its body is so lean and its speed is so incredibly fast that Garchomp's wings create blades of finely honed air that can cause trees to fall. It's also described as having an incredibly feral disposition, as Garchomp will hunt a person to the ends of the earth. Next is Zweilous, the hostile Pokemon. This is the evolution of Deino, and the only big thing that happens is it gets a second head, which makes its life a living nightmare. The two heads never get along and are always shown to be antagonizing and biting each other. According to the Pokedex, these battles are so violent that Zweilous actually gets stronger fighting itself than it does when fighting other Pokemon. All that said, they move into an area, eat all the food in the territory, and then leave when it can no longer sustain itself in a location. The heads are so food crazy that they'll hold eating contests between each other in order to determine who gets to control the body, leading them to run out of food even faster. We asked Druddigon to come over to our place and explain why it wasn't evil. It walked in and then told us we didn't live there anymore. You see, Druddigon are often seen acting like any dragon typically would, sunbathing and being a carnivore. However, a unique trait that Druddigon has is that it infiltrates the homes and nests of other Pokemon, evicts those Pokemon from their homes, and then proceeds to use those homes as their own hunting grounds and dragon lairs. Next is Dragalge, another Pokemon that doesn't like it when you trespass on their property. However, Dragalge is a special case in that it actively hunts passing ships, hiding inside seaweed before a ship comes by, at which time it melts the hull with its special acidic poison and sinks the ship. The situation is apparently so bad that legend says that if you wander into Dragalge's territory, your ship is doomed to never return. On to Salamence, Bagon's final evolution. As a result of it longing for the ability to fly, Bagon's hope and dreams powered its evolution and caused its cellular structure to forcibly change. Now, as a Salamence, it's so filled with joy that it flies around, burning down the local countryside. Apparently, in gaining the power to fly, Salamence also gained a really low impulse control and a proclivity towards destroying everything and anything with a pulse. And if you thought Salamence was bad, just wait until you hear what Hydreigon is capable of. After growing a pair of 6 wings, and Zweilous' 2 heads merge into one main head and 2 smaller brainless heads, Hydreigon is filled with only one main priority: to consume and destroy everything around it. This 3-headed menace is filled only with the desire to destroy, to the point that it responds to movement purely by attacking it. Its heads will take turns ripping enemies to shreds, and people in ancient times considered Hydreigon to be so cruel that it was called Evil Incarnate. You may be wondering why Vibrava is lower than Hydreigon. You see, Vibrava has a whole host of abilities. It is capable of using its wings to create ultrasonic waves, and these can cause pretty bad headaches. That's all well and good. However, what you may not know is that Vibrava is capable of spitting acid, very caustic acid. When it causes an enemy to faint, it will go up to the enemy, hold them down, and then proceed to melt the enemy with acid while the enemy is still alive. It will do this so that it can drink the victim's melting body, and if for whatever reason it cannot eat the victim right then and there, it will bury its dying victim in the sand so that it can be preserved for later, which is a downright awful way to go. Now, Giratina is a very weird and difficult Pokemon to quantify in terms of morality. The Pokemon world's equivalent to the Prince of Darkness is a terrifying beast from another dimension called the Distortion World. The Distortion World is a land full of antimatter, nonsense logic, and pulsing blue and red energy. Giratina was banished there because it had tried to attack and dethrone Arceus. Ever since, Giratina has been in charge of maintaining and surviving within the Distortion World, and it's very hard to tell whether Giratina has become okay with this over time, or desperately wants to get out. Regardless, Giratina is there to stay. If a door to the Distortion World ever opens up, that's an end-of-the-world style situation. Giratina itself has also served as an antagonist in a lot of Pokemon stories, whether willingly, unwillingly, or some weird middle ground in between. Predominantly, Giratina served as a major threat in Pokemon Legends Arceus, because it was directly responsible for sending the noble Pokemon into their Lord/Lady states, and teaming up with Volo to take control of Arceus, essentially kickstarting this central conflict. Giratina is also shown to have a nasty habit similar to Dialga and Palkia, where Giratina is easily tricked or manipulated, such as in Giratina and the Sky Warrior, where it fights Dialga to avenge the Distortion World, or in Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, where it gets brainwashed by Hoopa alongside its sibling Pokemon Palkia. Giratina has a lot of red marks on its register, and it feels like it makes sense that it would be on the evil side of our list, but it doesn't quite deserve one of our top 3 medals of evil, as it had on the legendary list. You voted, we listened. Taking the bronze medal of evil is Guzzlord, because according to reports, this thing has an appetite that would make Hydreigon blush. This Ultra Beast is an 18-foot behemoth, capable of eating buildings and taking bites out of mountains. It is constantly hungry and is always in search of something else to devour, and that alone makes it a terrifying force to be reckoned with. Because it leaves no droppings behind, it is speculated that anything it consumes is converted entirely into energy. This means that if you were to ever make the mistake of getting in the way of its feeding frenzy, it was nice knowing you, because you'll be erased from existence. Its endless hunger and its ability to just destroy everything earns it the bronze medal of evil. Taking the silver medal of evil is Eternatus, the gigantic Pokemon. The largest Pokemon ever recorded, Eternatus hails from the darkest depths of deep space, having touched down in Galar over 20,000 years ago. When it appeared, it caused the darkest day, a day where Pokemon Dynamaxed uncontrollably and began ravaging the Galar region. It took the combined powers of Zacian and Zamazenta to shatter Eternatus into the wishing stars and scatter it across the Galarian region. Eternatus itself can manipulate Dynamax energy, giving it the ability to force or prevent Pokemon from being able to Dynamax. It can also use Dynamax energy in order to enter a unique state beyond Dynamax called Eternamax. When Eternamaxed, it grows over 328 feet tall and begins to warp both space and time, as well as creating a well of Dynamax energy that Chairman Rose considered nigh infinite. Eternatus is responsible for nearly ending the world twice due to the darkest day, only to be stopped twice by Zacian, Zamazenta, Hop, and the protagonist of Sword and Shield. However, it is really hard to tell why Eternatus is going on a rampage. Is it really an evil Pokemon, or is it a wild animal in a scary place that simply doesn't know any better? The Eternamax state is described as being power overload, so it may be possible that Eternatus is just reacting to the discomfort being forced into that state might bring. Regardless, Eternatus is capable of ending the world if it were released, which more than earns it the silver medal of evil. Finally, claiming the gold medal of evil is Kyurem, the boundary Pokemon. Kyurem is a Pokemon that is hollow in every sense of the word. After being emptied of its essence years ago, Kyurem found its body frozen by its own ultra-cold air in a desperate attempt to keep its DNA stable. According to Unovan legends, Kyurem is supposedly one of the few Pokemon that has been known to eat people as a source of food, since it would attack and eat them if they were found outside at night. Kyurem also doesn't seem to hesitate in Black and White too, when Ghetsis asked it to murder the main protagonist, giving it the honor of being one of the few, if not the only Pokemon to attempt to personally kill a player, in the Pokémon franchise. To make things that much more uncomfortable, Getz has created the DNA splicers for the express purpose of forcing Kyurem to be whole again by refusing Reshiram and Zekrom into its body. Kyurem is a sad but incredibly terrifying and hostile Pokémon that definitely earns the Gold Medal of Evil. And with our morality spectrum wrapped up, let's end this video with some Sinner medals. The Gluttony medal goes to Guzzlord, because eating is its entire reason to live. It eats buildings. The Pride medal goes to Komodo, because it just keeps showing off the damage that it's taken from battle. A few times is just being proud. Doing it every single battle is arrogant. The Sloth medal goes to Regidrago, because it doesn't need to eat, drink, or even breathe. The Greed medal goes to Drudgegon, because it stole my house. And finally, the Wrath medal goes to High Dragon, because it only thinks about destruction. But let us know in the comment section what you think of our ranking, and tell us, who do you think the most good and evil Dragon-type Pokemon are? Make sure to hit that notification bell, and binge more of our Pokemon videos. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.